I want to welcome you. We're going to do this in an orderly fashion. When I get to it, we're going to read the guidelines. I want to do a quote. I did it last year. I want to do it again. The quote goes, "United we stand, divided we fall." As we all know, this adage has been with us for generations. As boundaries diffuse in this ever-shrinking world, unity becomes even more necessary. Only when we unite in spirit can we truly cope with the challenges we face every day. And before I introduce the candidates, I want to go over the guidelines. You all should have a copy of them. First one, let's respect one another. Let's be kind when we ask these questions. And I kind of put a little joke in there. Some of us live on the same street and in the same house. Might be beneficial to all of us to do that. The second one, when you ask a question, please specify which office it pertains to. For example, if it's a select board question, please state that before you ask your question. Each candidate that is running for the specified office will answer the same question. If you have a question, please raise your card and I will call on you in the order I see you. When called upon, please stand, state your question clearly. Well, now we know we have a microphone, so please wait for the microphone to be given to you. And then wait, please, so that we all have heard and make sure that the candidates and myself have heard the question. Then, if there is no other question after you, I'll call on you. At that time, you can ask the second one. And then the fourth one, I want to give each person an opportunity to ask a question. So as I stated, ask your question, sit and wait for everyone to ask the question. Once all have, you'll be asked if you wanted a second question, you'll be able to do it at that time. Now to the candidates. I will call on the candidate to start answering the questions. Each candidate will be given a short time to answer as we have to keep things moving forward at a steady pace, because I'm sick and want to get home. I'm kidding. When everyone has asked a question, I will allow 3 minutes per candidate to make a brief statement if they so choose to do so. And that will be after the questions have ended. Okay? That way it'll give you time to kind of know the gist of what everybody's trying to ask you. Now, I'll start with way out the far end. For Select Board, Stephen Skibnowski, Rhonda Chiver, did I get it? Mr. Clark's mother. Treasurer for Treasurer, Cindy Turnley. For Town Clerk, Kim Arsenault, Melissa Ferris, and Nancy Gassett. Welcome all. You should be proud of what you're doing. It's a brave thing that you do. It's hard. It's a very hard thing. So, thank you for doing that. All right, we'll start off. Who would like to have the first question? Well, we've got to have some questions. That's what the candidate form's for. Okay. Dale?
I'll start this off with a general question for all the candidates. What specifically unique qualities do each one of you bring to the positions that you're seeking?
How about we answer that at the end? Can we do that? Go ahead. Nancy, go ahead first. It's your husband, you might as well answer that.
I believe the town clerk's office needs a person who is administratively capable and detail-oriented to deal with the town's records in an appropriate manner, and I believe I have those qualities. And I also believe I have the experience to follow through with the duties the office demands.
Working in the town clerk's office, you need to be working to Vermont statute. I have specific training as a paralegal that allows me to access statutes, to understand the statutes, and I've been working to Vermont statute and court policy and procedure for the last 4 years.
I have spent my entire career as a broadcaster and a broadcast journalist. I would say that I bring 3 qualities that would be essential to the town clerk's office. 1, the ability to handle records correctly, as I have done so as the radio station's compliance officer, dealing with the FCC on a regular basis, including licensing and handling quarterly issues reports. Secondly, I would say that the ability of a journalist to ferret out information and make sure that people get their questions answered is a must, and I would bring that ability to the town clerk's office. Thirdly, I have a track record of experience both in the region and in this town, that I'm someone who could be trusted to help everybody equally and to make sure that we all can move forward as a town.
I have many years of experience in the accounting and business relations field, including but not limited to payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, credit and collections, and human resources. I'm entering my 12th year working in the treasurer's office. I worked 9 years as the assistant treasurer. I did 1 year covering as treasurer while the former treasurer was out on a leave of absence, and I have 1 year appointed by the select board as town and school district treasurer. I have worked 2 years closely with Sullivan Powers and Associates, streamlining office procedures.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. I serve on the library board, on the fiber optics subcommittee. I also represent Vernon on the Windham County Economic Development Program Council. I'm also creative and imaginative. I started the e-newsletter that comes out once a month. I co-founded the website, the unofficial town website, and I co-founded the Vernon Artisans Tour. I care about this town.
Steve Skibnowski here. Just a few thoughts about why I feel that I'm capable of doing this job. Firstly, I have a perspective of Vernon that goes back probably as long as most people that are here. And secondly, I've actually participated in a number of positions in the town over the time that I've lived here. The other aspect of my interest in seeking the position on select board is that Vernon's going to be facing a number of challenges with the continuing decline of revenue from Vermont Yankee. And I think that I'm able to assess a lot of the possibilities for the future and hopefully provide some guidance based on the background that I have in environmental sciences and chemistry. So that's why I think I would be a good candidate for this job.
Anybody else have some questions? Jeff?
This is to the select board candidates. I'm curious about your stand on the possibilities of this gas plant coming into our area.
Ron?
I have gone on record as opposed to it, and I think there's more to the question than just yes or no, we should have it or not. I have a lot of questions about it. I've learned some. I know there's more questions. One question I have is, how will it really reduce our taxes? They're going up. Will it reduce them? Other questions, I think it's not going to solve all the problems, all the challenges we have in town. Our economic viability is going to, we're going to have to depend on other things like fiber optics, to help us, to bring us technology that will help us go forward in the future. I think it's a very complex question, but and we really need to look at all of it, and all of us need to do research on it and find out more than we've already found out.
Steve Skibnowski here. My position on anything like the gas plant or any a new industry that might want to come into Vernon is that I at this point in time, I have an open mind about the process, about the result. There have been a number of meetings conducted, many of which I've attended, discussing the gas plant and its pros and cons. Many of you may know that I worked at Vermont Yankee for 43 years, and as a result of that experience, and having grown up here in town, it was unusual to be able to continue working in a town that you grew up in a nuclear power plant. But I'm aware that the technology is out there for running a gas plant safely. I think that it behooves us to consider that and to consider it as a possible significant improvement to the town's financial situation, to its grand list. Having said that, it's certainly going to be the decision of the townspeople as to whether we proceed forward with this. There's an opportunity certainly coming up here shortly to voice your opinion. And I certainly would follow the recommendations of the general public in that regard. Myself personally, I do feel that a gas plant is a safe way to generate electricity, as I did for the nuclear plant, which I certainly supported and worked towards making that plant safer for many, many years. So that's my situation.
Thank you both. Any more questions? Gordon, I'll come back to you, Jeff.
No problem.
Okay?
This question is to the town clerk position. 2-4. Ask one question, get one free, maybe. First question would be simply this. Okay, they're easy questions, softballs. First question would be that I've heard that it has been, for various reasons, sometimes challenging to get hold of the town clerk during maybe working hours for some of us. I'm curious as to what you feel the hours of operation would be for the town clerk's office. And then also, the second question would simply be, are you aware of any areas that you feel could use improvement upon? What would you bring, any ideas that you'd say, this would be a good idea, we can improve upon this position or this office in this way? Just curious.
Tim?
Oh, thank you for asking the question, Gordy. Firstly, hours by appointment means we're always available to people. And one of the things that we should look at, whoever gets elected, is whether the hours can be adjusted so that people who work a 9 to 5 workday can have accessibility to the office. I know that in past years, back in the days when Don Holland was retired and was head of the Board of Civil Authority, he would open up the office on a Saturday morning before an election for absentee ballot purposes. Those are some of the creative things we can do, and certainly there are other things like providing the ability to license dogs at an off hour sometime before the 1st of April. That would be good. And what was the second half of your question again?
If you're aware of any areas, do you have any thoughts as to what can be improved upon in the town clerk's office? Something maybe you do different?
The only thing that I would do that I'm not saying it's different, but it would be a commitment to both hard work and crackerjack service, because all of you are working hard to pay our salary. So why would we not work equally as hard for you?
Thank you. I would like to see some hours changed for the town clerk's office. I would like to see at least one set of evening hours, maybe a noon to 7, to handle someone that's got an off shift, be able to pop in after work. As a working parent, I knew in the morning after I got my son on the bus, there's no way I was going to make it between the hours of 9 and 5. I think it's important to get back to having Fridays, at least 2 Friday mornings a month, if not more. Again, to accommodate a lot of people in town that have Fridays off. What I'd like to see improved is the accessibility of all the departments. If I was elected, I would implement some cross-training so that if you needed help, if you wanted to pay your taxes off hours, I know the hours are expanded the couple days before taxes are due, but if you wanted to pop in and do your taxes, someone would be there to help you. If you had to come in at 6 o'clock when the treasurer's office is open and the clerk's office isn't, it would be nice to get someone cross-trained that could help you with your needs. So those are just my ideas.
As someone who is presently an assistant town clerk in the office, I'll tell you that we already do a lot of these things. We have office hours 4 days a week from 7:30 to 5, because the select board decided that they wanted the office building to be open 4 days a week for 10-hour days. So we all went along with it to be cooperative with building usage. We can certainly look at that differently and visit it, but we have advertised seeing people by appointment for years, and I have done that in the last months that I've been there. I've met with several people at night when they've requested appointments for different reasons. So these things are already happening, and as far as cross-training, Cindy can confirm that we do take tax payments when she's not open, so we do some of that already, helping each other out. We also do listers cards when the listers are not there. So we already help each other out in various ways. Some of the reasons that some of the things that I would like to do to improve the office, we already have in play someone who's copying our records right now, and they will be providing us with a digital copy of all of our town records. And the plan would be to have those on a computer in the town clerk's office so people could access them digitally and make copies without having to go in and get the hard books and take the pages apart and so forth. So that's one of the ways that we're aiming to improve the office. Another thing is that I believe we have a responsibility to plan for the future. As the office stands right now, I'm the only experienced person that is able to run for office because Ina is a resident of Jamaica, so she can't run. We need to look at the future and leave the office in a condition that is ready for the next generation. And what Ina and I would like to do is look for a town resident that would be interested to be trained and taught the office duties and so forth, so that they could be prepared to take over in future years. We are so committed to this that we are willing to adjust our salaries to use the budget salary line items that exist so that we can make this happen. And another thing I'll add about the office hours, in past years, the town clerk's office has been afforded about 110 work hours a week to do the duties. Since BY closed and the budget has been reduced in many areas, we will be down to 69 office hours this coming budget to complete the workload. So we can't necessarily increase our hours when we have less work hours to work with.
Thank you. Any other questions? Janet?
Jenna Rasmussen. I have a question for the two select board people who are running. Considering that one of the primary duties of the select board is to manage the budget and to try and control the budget, and considering what our taxes are likely to be over the next several years, do you have any innovative notions, or how do you see your responsibilities vis-a-vis the budget?
Well, let me start out by saying that I've had some contact with the budgeting process, and at least the method that the current select board is using. Last year, I filled in for a short while and covered some budget items during that period, reviewed statements and so forth. Because I was there for such a short time, I did not really get a very clear picture of how that all really worked. Fortunately, Emily led us through the process as much as we could for new select board people. I will tell you that I've had a number of years of experience at Vermont Yankee managing the budget for the chemistry department. I was chemistry manager for 11 years there, and our budget for the chemistry department was significantly larger than the town budget. And I do have some experience in that area. It takes work, it takes a lot of close tracking, and you have to sometimes make hard decisions, and I plan to use that kind of approach in looking at the town budget if I'm elected.
I have no experience working on a budget at this level. I do attend select board meetings, even the ones that are special ones, like we had a lot of them this year. I ask questions when I don't know the answers, and I offer suggestions, but I'm afraid I do not know the answer to that question, to be honest.
Thank you both. Any more questions? So I have questions. Jeff, you had, let me go to Jeff, I already called his name. Jeff, you had another question?
I did. This is Jeff Durborough again. One of the things my grandfather taught me a long time ago is that you can't really have an opinion on anything unless you can argue both sides of it. And you have to be equally good for the good and equally good for the bad. And I would like the select board to take sort of that approach to looking at this gas plant, and the voters also. You need to be able to figure out that you can argue both sides of it. One of the biggest problems we had with Vermont Yankee is that there should have been some sort of a publication that went out during construction that talked about the safety systems that were going in so that people had an idea of what was happening. Consequently, nobody knew, and most of us who worked there were treated like we were glowing in the dark, and yet we hadn't even gone critical. It was just an interesting position to be in, and so I request that everybody have an open mind and look at the tax advantages, look at how safe this is or not safe. I think these are important issues. Vermont Yankees, it turned out, was extraordinarily safe. It was one of the best operated plants in the country. And there is talk that it was probably the wrong plant to shut down. However, that job is done. Thank you.
Hey.
I hope I remember what I was going to ask. It had to do with the town clerk hours, as I understood Nancy to say. The hours were being cut back to 69 hours a week as of when? When would that be? July 1st? July 1st. So right now they're how many hours? 79. Okay. And I guess I'm wondering if maybe this probably would be more of a question for the two candidates that would be new to the position. Do you think that would be time enough to get the job done? Because you'd be new to the position, so there's a lot to learn. And right now, you've got 79 hours, and you also have volunteers coming in to make copies and do various things that aren't necessarily legal stuff, but paperwork that we can file, etc.
So your question is, would 79 hours be okay from now until June 30th? And will they be able to operate with 69 hours beginning on July 1st? Correct?
Yeah. Would they think they'd be prepared to do
All right,
that?
Melissa?
I do think that I would be prepared. My exposure to working with Vermont statutes for the last 4 years gives me a pretty good understanding. Working to policy and procedure, my ability to multitask in the law office I'm at right now. I've been trained, I pick up things well. I'm not only able to be trained, but I was also a teacher for part of my career. And I think that utilizing the mentor program that the state has for new town clerks and utilizing previous town clerks, utilizing Sandy Harris, she has graciously offered to help train. I think that that won't be an issue at all.
Nancy?
Didn't you say the question was for two people who didn't
Well,
work?
you couldn't answer it. You're running for office.
Okay.
You need to let the people know.
Well, I've been working in the office for the past 8.5 months, and with Ina, who is very experienced, she came to us 10 years ago, having worked in other town clerk offices around the state. She and I together have managed to keep everything accomplished, but it hasn't been easy because I was trained by her during that time. And I just would like to add that a lot of people work in offices, and I've worked in other offices myself, but when I was asked to come in and be sworn in as an assistant town clerk almost 9 months ago, I was really surprised at the level of duties and responsibilities that the statutes give to town clerk offices in Vermont. There's just lots of things that I just can't get into because the details are just way too extensive. I have copies of the town clerk's report that will be in the town report with me if anybody wants a copy. I got into it very extensively in there, hoping to have people understand. I don't doubt that there aren't many people who can accomplish the job. It's just that training in the office, hands-on, to know where things are, to know how to do things, is just something you need training for.
Thank you for asking the question, Peggy. I think personally, what the issue is those are the hours that the board in its collective wisdom has given us, and we would have to find a way to make it work. That said, if you look at my entire career, I'm not someone who's been held to a 40-hour work week, even though that's what I've been paid for. If the job takes more, I'm more task-oriented than making sure that, oh gosh, it's 4:30, I've got to leave. If the job needs to get done, it shall get done, no matter how long it takes. That's my commitment.
Thank you. Another question? That's what we're here for, to ask these people questions. Just a minute, Peggy. All right, going to go back to Peggy then.
This would be for the select board members. I just wondered if there was any specific goals that you kind of maybe had in mind, a reason for running, or what you'd like to see accomplished during your time if you get elected.
Ronna?
Yeah, I am really looking forward to when the Vermont Council on Rural Development comes here with their community visit program. It's supposed to start in March, though, and it's a 4-month process, and I believe they even continue to support the towns they work with. It's a program that helps towns focus on what they want, what we want to do. It's worked with Pownell, Guilford, Montpelier, Rutland, Craftsbury, St. Johnsbury, and the towns in the Northeast Kingdom. It will help us decide and actually start working for goals that we decide on as a community. So I'm looking forward to that, which I hope will start soon.
Yeah, Steve Skibnowski. One of the things that I think is really important, I know there's an effort underway to work on it, and I'd like to make sure that that continues. The town has a number of ordinances that have various stages of revision and completion. I'd like to try to make those, move forward with those, the revision on those as soon as possible, and actually get them out so that they're easily accessible. And I know that there's been some work on that, but I imagine that there's probably more to be done there. That would be one of my goals. Another goal that I would have, there was a good deal of work done comparing, or by the select board, previous select board, on comparing Vernon's, I guess, a level of support, level of service versus their costs. And as a town, we need to continue to look at ways to try to economize, because even if we do have some new entity that comes in and pays a whole lot more taxes, it's not going to happen overnight. We're going to be going through a period of time when we are going to continue to need to tighten our belts or see our property tax values, property taxes rise, and perhaps our values fall. Those are the two things that come to the forefront for me right now. The other thing, and actually the last thing that kind of encompasses everything, I'd like to see the town enter into a new phase of civility. I think that it is really important. Over the last year and a half, 2 years, it's been, and I know things are tight and tough, but there's been a marked increase in the lack of civility sometimes amongst people. I think we all of us need to recognize that we live here in town. We have a stake in the town. We may not all agree with each other about how to get the job accomplished, but we need to be able to talk to each other and treat each other as fellow citizens. And I'm going to personally put my efforts into making sure that happens from my end of it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Doesn't anybody have a question for Cindy? She's our treasurer. I know she's running uncontested, but I'm sure by sitting up there, she wants to answer some question. Right?
Sorry, I just came into my head. Bronna, you're running for 2 different seats, is that correct? Okay, I'm confused because can you vote for a person for 2 seats?
You can.
And what would happen?
If she won both seats, then she would choose which seat she wants to be sat at.
No.
That was trying not to be silly. And then it would be up to the select board to either appoint or go into another election if she won them both. So yes, you can vote for her.
It wouldn't automatically go to the next person in line. It would have to be a whole re-vote.
Now, the select board can choose to go to the next person.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's however the select board chooses to do that.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Any other question?
I've heard a lot about, this question is for the 2 candidates for select board. I've heard a lot about how Vernon is changing now that Vermont Yankee's gone. And I'm wondering what the candidate's impression of how Vernon, without Vermont Yankee, is different from other towns in the area, such as Guilford or Jamaica, and how that difference impacts our finances and the way the town should be governed.
Steve?
Oh, Well, I didn't have much time to think about that one, but I do have some ideas on that subject. I have, of course, I wasn't actually born in Vernon. Back in the day that I was born, mother went off to the hospital in Brattleboro, and she was confined for 10 days, and then I got to come back home. But at any rate, setting that aside, I've been here a long time. I was certainly aware and very cognizant of what Vernon was like before Vermont Yankee was even contemplated. And it was a quiet rural community, farms. We did have a new school, which I enrolled in 1954 in first grade. I was the first class that wasn't in a multi-class single classroom. How will we be different, or how are we different? One of the things that Vernon is different in now than other communities around is that our expectations in this town have probably significantly exceeded what other folks are willing to be satisfied with in other towns. And that's just, pure and simple, the nature of having these kinds of services, having these kinds of structures, and being comfortable with the fact that, they're always going to be there. Other towns haven't quite gotten here yet, and may never get here because, we had a real source of income in our nuclear plant, not only from the standpoint of the taxes that plant paid, but also just the large workforce that rolled in here and bought homes or built homes. I mean, I can point to whole sections of town that didn't exist before the land boom here after Vermont Yankee was sited. Vernon's very different in that regard. Can Vernon reset its expectations to, I don't like to say a lower standard, but more to a different type of standard than they're used to now? I'm not sure. I've seen signs both ways. One thing I was very encouraged by was the definitive steps that the town took to consolidate its law enforcement process in a much more cost-efficient manner. That to me was a big plus, and the townspeople actually came forward at the town meeting and actually accomplished that right there and then. And that was impressive to me. That was actually voted in. So I think that there's certainly possibilities to move in that kind of direction in the future. Did I answer your question?
I believe so.
Okay. And you?
I have not been here as long as Steve, or as long as Sandy. Probably not as long as Josh. No, I meant the other candidates running. And so, how it's different from other towns that I have known, I think I would go back to what Steve said in his answer before about civility. There's factions in town. That to me is the elephant in the room. And I'd like to see that. I'd like to see us agree to disagree with respect for each other. I don't know anything else to say. I like what Steve answered. I think I have a lot to learn, and that's what I'm willing to do.
Thank you.
He has a follow-up.
I have a question right down front here. Can I get follow-up in a minute?
Yes, for the people running for town clerk office. You've all explained a little bit about what you believe it takes and a little bit about your background and what you think you bring to the office. What do you see as an important facet, one of the good qualities that a town clerk really needs to bring to the office?
Nancy?
I believe strongly in our republic form of government. And I believe that we should always acknowledge that we are accountable legally to the people of this town. So I believe that when we do our jobs correctly as town officers, we always have the statutes in mind. None of us are perfect, and we won't perfectly meet them all. But if we don't have respect for them and look to them as what we should follow, then we will not be serving the people with the correct attitude.
Thank you for asking the question. Really, in a town like Vernon, the first people you normally would see is the town clerk's office, either to find out about licensing your dog or certain other details like that. And no matter who comes in, you deserve to get the answers to your questions, you deserve to be treated fairly, and you deserve to be treated efficiently within the boundaries of the law. And if there's a question you have that we can help you with and show you what part of the law that it applies to, that certainly is something we should be doing. You like I say, you work hard for your money, you deserve something in return that shows that we respect the fact that you have chosen to live and work here.
Melissa?
I think my background, my 25 plus years in customer service, really dictates the answer to this question. Customer service, for me, has always been first and foremost. And in the town clerk position, I believe that customer service and accessibility to the town records, to the service that you are elected to provide, is the most important thing. I didn't always see people when they were at their best. I come from a healthcare background, and I like to pride myself on the fact that my customer service skills are and always were excellent. It's the same thing with the law office. I don't always see people coming in that are at their best. They're coming in after the loss of a loved one. As a customer service specialist, as the face of our office, and helping people at the hospital where I worked at BMH and when I was in New York State, that was my commitment to my job. And as town clerk, that would be a huge, huge part of my commitment to that office.
Thank you. Anybody else before I go to his follow-up? Step up.
First of all, my name's Ian Heffley. I've lived in Vernon for about almost 2 years now. I don't really speak much at these events. I come to take it in. But accessibility has been mentioned both by the people running for town office and the select board. So I will divide this up so the moderator doesn't get mad at me, and I'll come back for follow-up. First, for the town clerk's office. I have a dog, as my neighbors know, that he ends up escaping to their yard sometimes. And I like to keep up on the dog licensing. This past year, it was easier for me to mail the check from Brattleboro to the town clerk's office, because as someone who works 8:30 to 5:30 in Brattleboro and need to run errands in town in Brattleboro during my lunchtime, it's almost impossible for me to get to the town clerk's office while you're open. I had no idea about the hours by appointment. So how important would that be for you? Because accessibility is important to attract people my age and younger into this town if we want a new generation of Vernonites to be here.
Who's next? First, Melissa. Let's just choose you.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for participating tonight. Accessibility for me has been an issue. My husband always had Fridays off, and raising a child, trying to get a child on the bus, trying to get to the town clerk's office, and I worked 9 to 5 at a law office. Prior to that, I was subbing in a school. Prior to that, I was working all kinds of different shifts. And the accessibility for me wasn't there. My ideas are to incorporate odd hours, some weekends, a Saturday a month. I think, panic sets in for some people on Wednesday night when they say, I don't have garbage bags, trash pickup is tomorrow. That was the idea between my noon to 7 on Wednesdays or 1 to 8. Just something different so that we could cater to people that were on off shifts. As far as by appointment, I know that in the statute it says reasonable hours, during reasonable hours. If you're new to town and you're leaving a message at the town clerk's office, it's going to get picked up that next business day. You leave your home phone number, you're playing phone tag. I would like to get the word out, provide my home phone number, provide my email, which has been published a couple places now as I've been running. If I get elected, feel free to call my house. By appointment means by appointment. I'm a mile away. Do you want me to meet you there in 15 minutes? All right, let's go. Accessibility is very important and something I'm very serious about.
I think we could do a better job advertising what we do by appointment, because if you haven't heard of it, then I would apologize for that. Otherwise, I would say that we have accommodated people in many ways, such as what you suggested with dog licenses being mailed back and forth. We receive checks through the mail and then we mail back the dog tags. So we've done a lot of things through the mail. I've done a lot of situations where people want things and I scan them in and then I email them to them as with an attachment. So we have been open to accommodating a lot of various situations, and we probably just need to do a better job advertising it. And we're not closed to the idea of being open an evening. We just, like I said, the building usage, I think, was decided by the select board, pretty much. We tried to make all the offices sort of consistently have the same hours, pretty much. And I guess we could all take a look at that. Cindy's changed her hours a little bit, and the listers have changed a little bit, but maybe we need to ask the residents of Vernon what they desire and get a better idea on what works for everybody.
I'm certainly open to looking at different sorts of hours to make sure that people can attend, but as someone who's basically been on call for the past 42 years, nights, weekends, I've been called in at all hours of the day and night, and my wife of 26 years, Sue, can certainly attest to that, and she would be the first to grumble when that happens, but this is the 21st century. It means that we're mobile, we're accessible, both home phone, email, and cell phone.
Jessica Butterfield, this is probably a stupid question, but I don't understand if you guys are treasurer, if you're saying that your line item is to be only a certain amount of hours, I don't understand how that works. If you're now saying, oh, well, call me, I'll come meet you, is that part of your total hours? So how do you ever set hours? Do you build in times that you may have to be called out? And are those hours set for everyone in the office? Is that total office hours? Like you, the assistant?
Jim? Go ahead, Nancy.
What I was referring to is the budget that was put in for the next fiscal year. When they make the budgets, they have to project hours and wages to come up with a number for the salary line items. So the town clerk's budget that was submitted for next year allows for 69 work hours, which means there's 2 salary line items. One is for the clerk and one is for assistants. The clerk's line item is figured on a 40-hour week at the starting rate of a clerk, which is on a pay grid that was also determined by the select board. The assistant clerks are the same. Their pay is figured on a pay grid. The town uses a pay grid. And if you project the hours and the hourly wage, you come up with 29 hours for assistants and 40 for a clerk. And I think to answer your question about the hours, in the statutes, the town clerk is allowed to run their office, so to speak. So you can, as a town clerk, you can decide what your hours are. As a town officer, like Cindy as the treasurer or the listers, they can decide what their office hours are. As I said before, we've tried to be cooperative with collectively about the building. So we try not to all go off on our own place to exist. But yeah, I mean, the on-call thing would have to be figured into your weekly hours. So if somebody decided to work at night, they were getting paid for 40 hours and they only wanted to work for 40 hours, they'd have to keep track of their hours, and those night hours would count as part of their weekly hours.
As an elected official, I think you're working for the voters. When I spoke to Sandy Harris about the position, she made it very clear it wasn't always a 40-hour work week. And the extra time that would be needed to accommodate the on-call or by appointment would be fit in, whether it means I have a 20-minute appointment that I don't get paid for to stay within the budget. That would be something that, as far as my platform is concerned, customer service and accessibility come first. I would expect that this isn't a 40-hour-a-week job. I would expect the voters would want a little bit more and would need a little bit more, especially with all the changes that are coming down the pike with VY slowly taking off our tax rolls and the possibility of the gas plant coming in. So over the next 3 years, which is the length of the term, whether it's a 40-hour week or a 60-hour week, it's not going to be a budget buster. It's going to be what the town needs.
Jim?
None of us in industry really seriously work a 40-hour week, and you should expect us in public service to work as hard as you do. If that means I lose a night because someone needs something, that's fine. I mean, none of us are in this for the money. We should expect to serve the public because you're the people who put us here.
Thank you. Anybody else? Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Core.
Well, I just... wait for the microphone. I can hardly hear you, so I can't.
Sorry about that. Well, I'm Kathy Cord. Well, I just thought I'd try to give Cindy a chance to speak. You know, thanks. Yeah. Thanks for sitting up there, I guess, even though you're running unopposed. So I've been racking my brain to try to think of something to ask you. The only thing I can come up with is just, because I believe you were assistant treasurer, and now since you've been in the position of treasurer, can you just share with our group maybe just an item that you found that's maybe is, you know, a procedure or a policy that's not running too well, something that you've encountered in your position as treasurer that, you know, when elected going forward, that you would like to address and make things better in the treasurer's office?
Thank you. Actually, I've already had that happen since I was appointed as treasurer. One of the issues was the way we reconcile with our delinquent tax collector. In the past, it was we didn't always, at the end of the fiscal year, we didn't always have the exact same figures based on when the money was brought in. Beginning last year, I instituted using our computer system, which is a NEMRIC system, in which I actually input the information into the tax administration portion, and every month I equal exactly to what the delinquent tax collector says that she still has outstanding. That wasn't done before. I instituted it last year, and it's worked very well. Another situation that we've worked on is reconciling our books. In the past, both the treasurer and the assistant both did posting journal entries. I have changed that, so now I do all of the posting of entries, and my assistant reconciles the checking account so that she's not touching anything, and she's reconciling, and I'm doing all of the entries and all of the accounts payables and everything, so that when she reconciles, she's reconciling my book, what I've done. And that has also worked very well. When we were audited for the second time, we're in the middle of a 3-year audit, we received an excellent review on changing that procedure from our auditors. So as things go forward, I will continue to do that as needed.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Kathy.
I'll ask the treasurer a question too. I don't know a lot about the town gossip and politics and contention and all that, but I do know that the outside auditors was a huge issue in the last couple of years, so I'm wondering, how has it been working with the outside auditors?
Cindy?
Thank you. That has worked excellent. We have a very good working relationship. I have followed their recommendations, and they're excellent to work with. They're always available by telephone or by email if any questions come up, and it has been a very positive experience.
I have a follow-up over there in the back. Yes, him.
It sounded, this is questions for both of the select board candidates, and I'm Nathan. It sounded like both of the candidates agree that voters in the town of Vernon have a higher expectation for the town and the services it provides than other towns in the area. And now with the loss of Vermont Yankee, there's a lesser ability to pay for those services. As members of the select board, would you be more inclined to maintain a higher level of service at the cost of higher taxes, or would you be more inclined to tighten our belt and cut back on services?
Ron?
Excellent question.
Yes, it was. I'd like to know it.
Having watched the process this year that the select board went through, I would say it's up to the town at town meeting to show us the way. They are the real governing body of this town. And it's a tough, I can't answer that question off the top of my head. There were lots of services that we are used to having that perhaps we need to look at again. I know they did a really good job of it this year, and we're going to continue to do that every year.
Steve Skibnowski. My approach to this situation would be to, for one thing, exercise everything that I have ability-wise as a select board member to keep costs down, at least on the town budget side. There may be times when, in fact, some additional cost may need to be incurred, but I think there's always a way to look in other areas to cut costs, at least temporarily. I would certainly encourage people here to try to keep a lid on taxes. One of the things that we need to do is is make it through a period of transition. There are a lot of people here who are living in town, and I guess I'm now in that group that are living on fixed budgets or fixed incomes, retirees, etc. And I think that it's really important for us to try to encourage level or reduced funding so that we can keep a lid on taxes. I'm also, of course, always concerned about school costs. I know that they're the lion's share of the taxes that we pay. We have less control over those, unfortunately. But certainly as a select board member, I will do everything I can to keep costs down and try to find alternative ways to get the job done for the purpose of keeping a lid on tax increases.
Thank you. Jeff has one too, so when you're done, Jeff, you're up next.
Okay. So to change subject a little bit, I could go off very, hopefully eloquently along this line, but I want to bring up pay-as-you-throw trash bags. I'm not complaining about the price hike, so let's just put that out there. I am perfectly fine. It's still cheaper than contracting privately. As someone who lived in Guilford before we moved here, it is definitely cheaper than anything that you could do privately. But accessibility, again. I spend 90% of my day in Brattleboro, as most working people do around here. I mean, Tim, you were just in Brattleboro quite often yourself. Now, I can't go to Hannaford's, I can't go to Price Chopper and get the bags for Vernon like all of my friends in Brattleboro can do. In fact, the only location that is remotely convenient for me to pick up trash bags, which I need to do, I was reminded this evening, is the Guilford Country Store. That's the only place. And the fact, telling someone from my generation that I have to pay in cash, and then I get told, oh, you can write a check. I can probably count on my hand how many checks I've written in my life. It's just a fact. Checks were never very useful. So how can we go forward to make them, one, more accessible? Maybe one location in Brattleboro, I'm not asking them to be example, or maybe even combining with Brattleboro so I can pick up Brattleboro bags and use them in Vernon. Anyone can answer. In fact, if all of you want to answer, go ahead.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you. First of all, I altered my hours, so I open at 6 a.m. and I'm open until 4 p.m. so that people could come into my office to pick up trash bags on their way to work. Yeah. So that is, it's worked out very well. I've had a lot of people that do come in to do that. So if Wednesday night you haven't gotten your trash bags, you can come in at 6 o'clock on Thursday morning and I will be there. The other thing is we used to, mostly for tax purposes, tax payment purposes, we used to take credit cards. We stopped taking credit cards because the company was threatening to a yearly charge of $1,000, which we did not want to pass on to the taxpayers. So the select board made the decision to stop, to get rid of that service and no longer accept credit cards. That's why we only accept cash and checks.
What about a debit card?
No, it's the same situation. The service we used was going to increase the cost to $1,000 a year, and the select board said we don't want to pass that on to the taxpayers.
Jim, did you want to say something? Please do.
I just wanted to expand upon that, and I was in the exact same situation as the gentleman was, going to the Guilford Country Store and not having any cash on me and refusing to pay an outside ATM fee. I instead drove to Brattleboro and got my way through the early morning high school traffic, found my ATM, came back, and I did think that was a little silly, yes. One issue that we need to think about, and I hope that whoever is elected from this stage and from all other offices really seriously consider encouraging someone to reopen a store in this town. We have lost a lot with the closure of Schoolhouse Grocery, and how do you have a sense of community if you don't have a community center? And that was the store. We, all of us in this town, bear a responsibility in trying to support whatever entity comes out, and I would hope we all can make it happen.
Anybody else want to answer that question? Vernon?
Ian is a friend of mine, and I took his request to the Select Board and the Recycling Committee Monday night. And I hope in the future they will consider it.
Steve?
I think that there can be some way to help people in your situation out here, certainly. I do want to make one general comment about pay as you throw. I have been really pleased over the last, I think it's been 2 years now, to see the kind of change that it's meant in what is left out by the curbside, certainly in my neighborhood. I've always been a recycler. I take, truckloads of cardboard and stuff up to the bins, and I've been really delighted to see the change that's occurred in my neighborhood and around town. Every Thursday morning, it looks a whole lot different than it did years ago, and I'm really delighted that the Select Board took that on. It wasn't an easy job, and took that on and implemented that program. Certainly, bag availability is something we need to address, and we'll work on that.
Anybody else want to answer that? Melissa? Nancy? Okay. Moving on. Now I got someone before you. Jeff?
This is a question for the town clerk candidates. Is your position exempt or non-exempt? I'm going back to the question about hours and the salary. Are you hourly employees? Are you salaried employees?
I believe it's considered a salaried position, the town clerk.
So it's hours as required?
Yes, but we do have counting situations with time sheets and benefits and so forth, so.
The town clerk's position, the treasurer's position, the rec director's position, those are all salaried positions. Whether you work 35 hours one week, 45 hours another week, you get paid the same amount of money. That's what a salaried position is. And so there, if one of the candidates or myself, if we have to be here, for example, this week I had to work extra hours because it was tax due day, and I am open 12 hours the day before and the day of. I don't get paid extra for that. But somewhere along the line, I may be able to leave a few hours early one day. So that's the way it works for myself. That's the way it works for the town clerk's office, the rec director, the highway department. The highway department does receive overtime, but only during the winter because they are required to be available to plow. So as an incentive to them, the select board decided years ago that from a certain period of time, I believe it's like November 1st to a certain time in the spring, if it snows, they get paid overtime. Otherwise, the rest of the year, they're salaried. The commissioner, the highway commissioner, he's salaried.
Thank you, Cindy.
Sorry, thanks. I just wanted to, this is more of a comment and an observation. Rarely in Brattleboro do you go into a merchant's office or store and see an actual credit card machine. The new brewery on High Street, they have what's called Square Cash for their iPhone or for their iPad, and just planting a seed that maybe this could be something in regards to the bags. as an easy way, because there's Samsung Pay, there's Apple Pay, there are many alternatives out there besides an old-fashioned credit card reader.
Can I try to moderate and just be not answer questions? But we met with the recycling committee on Monday night, and that question did come up. Bronna did bring it up, and we were told by Triple T you cannot pay with credit card. Why? I don't remember the reason why, but it's something that we're going to look into. And March 21st. Is when they'll be coming in again, and we'll get that answer for you, okay?
Chris?
Yes, go.
I know with the credit card app for the phone or the iPad, I know a merchant that uses that, and they also charge the merchant for that. So, yes, a little bit, but it's still an additional charge.
Any more questions? Jessica?
While we're talking trash, when I saw it on the, I saw on the Wyndham Southeast collect your stuff, what's it called? That's it, thank you. That by 2017, the state is mandating that you have to allow for curbside compost pickup too. So how much does that raise our weekly pickup rate when that happens?
Emily, our notorious other select board member, she has been following this for us, and we have Peggy that's on the.
She's on the segment committee. Yeah, she'll tell me if I'm wrong. I know she's been doing a lot of research also.
She has.
As I understand it, 2017. It can be offered by the trash hauler, but it will not be mandated by law that it can no longer go into the landfill until 2020. Right now, it's illegal for recyclables to go into the trash. And as of 2020, you will no longer be able to put compost materials in the trash.
Thank you, Peggy.
Well, so in case there's a little bit of clarification on that. So starting 2017, our hauler has to offer curbside compost, but we don't have to subscribe to it. So that's kind of the key piece. The town of Vernon we don't have to offer curbside composting for our residents as part of our trash and recycling pickup. We don't have to by law enroll in that program. It's just that the hauler has to offer it. So at this time, I don't think it's going to affect our rates because I don't think we have intentions of changing the level of service at this time. So I don't think there would be a change in rate.
Okay, let's get back to the candidates now. Any questions for the candidates?
This is again for the select board. This may be very similar to a question that was asked previously, but in assessing the gas plant and whether you would support it for the town of Vernon, what questions specifically are you going to be asking the people who are proposing it and other professionals about? Answer these questions so that I as a select board member can decide if I support it or not.
I have already said I'm concerned about the taxes. And I want to first of all say I appreciate Jeff's comment and I take it to heart. I think it's good advice, which is why I encourage everyone to be contacting, to learn as much as possible about the issue. And it's also why I've contacted other towns about what it's like to have the gas power plant there. And I've learned some things that I had heard I've heard contradictory statements. So I needed, and I still need a lot more to find out. For me, the tax situation is really an important issue. I know our taxes are going up and our property values are sinking. So what happens once a gas power plant comes in? Will our taxes decrease? That's, for me, the issue of taxes is very important.
Steve?
I certainly agree with Brana that taxes are very important. I also know that there's a great deal of interest on the part of some people in town about the actual safety emissions of pollutants into the atmosphere around these plants. And I really think that it's important to answer those thoroughly so that people can understand really what's going on with a gas-fired plant. From what I've been able to glean from the information that I've dug up personally, and also the information that the Planning Commission has assembled, the actual emissions from the gas plants are among the lowest of any kind of electrical generation using some kind of combustible fuel. And although the emissions from Vermont Yankee were much lower, looking at fossil fuels, that's the lowest that probably we can achieve. The other thing I like about, and I'm just going to say this out front, the life expectancy of a gas plant is not dependent so much on reactor embrittlement and so forth. It really depends a lot more on the need for energy. And I think it's very important to note here in Vermont that energy continues to be increasingly needed, and but yet I think that we are beginning to realize the limitations of some of these renewable sources, and that somewhere in the state we need to consider a baseload energy supply such as a gas plant. Vernon has been out in front on this, on not just the nuclear plant locating here in 1967, but some of you weren't around then. I wasn't either. But in 1907, we had a most unusual thing occur, which was, of course, the construction of the hydro dam, and one of the first in Vermont, and actually had a big impact on Vernon as far as some parts of Vernon land were flooded. Places that farmers used to farm were no longer accessible. But the plant was installed, and the hydro station was installed, the river was flooded up, and we started generating electricity, not really for the residents of Vernon, but more to supply the towns nearby. So I think, getting back to your question, certainly looking at the emissions is very important to me, because I think that there's a quite lingering question on that area. And I think also to agree with Brana about the tax situation.
Thank you. Let me say also that the Planning Commission has held 2 forums, and on town meeting day they will have a non-binding referendum that you may vote yes, you would like to see a gas plant, or you would like, or you would not. Also note that it will not be a select board's vote whether we have a gas plant or not. It will be the people. It does not necessarily mean that the people have the right to vote. The Planning Commission is extending that. The gas plant can come in without our permission, just to let you know. Am I correct, Patty? Okay. So that's not up to the select board to, per se. Go ahead. Gordon?
Thanks, Emily. Gordon Christensen. Chris, you did a great job for many years putting together the town newsletter. I think through the conversation tonight, what's become apparent, to Tim's point, without his schoolhouse grocery and a center for the town, communication has become an issue in our town. whether it's through extended hours at the town clerk or Cindy's extended hours. I think tonight's attendance would have been far greater if this event would have been somehow better publicized. And I'm curious, I think we have an issue here, and I'm not sure if it's a select board issue, but I'd prefer to direct the question to the town clerks. Is there a way or a thought that you might have, or maybe it is a select board, I'm open for anybody here, that can somehow increase the communication to the townspeople from whether it's select board or other officers in the town?
Good question. Thank you. How do we want to start? Let's start with Ron.
On the table is a little card that says, subscribe to the Vernon Community News. I started it over a year ago. It's an electronic e-newsletter that comes out once a month. I try to put all kinds, well, no, I don't try. Do you get it?
I do, and you do an excellent job. How can we communicate what you're doing to everybody else that's not on your mailing list right now?
Get them to sign up, go to the library, it's printed out, it's in the town clerk's office. It's printed out, you can just have copies made. The retirees don't get it, I mean the seniors don't get it, I'm a retiree. The seniors don't have computers. Barbara doesn't have a computer. She reads it beforehand because she's my proofreader. Kathy doesn't use it read it on the computer. She gets it at the library. I can distribute it. People print it off and distribute it to each other. But that's, I think you asked the town clerk how they could, so I think I'll let them.
Okay.
Tim?
One of my favorite sayings that is in writing in this town is a sign on the side of Sosamos saying, you can't do business from an empty wagon. My media background tells me that we've become more diverse in that way, and it's harder to get your message out through just one function. For instance, BCTV is here, and they will be rebroadcasting this on brattleboro.tv.org and on, I believe, Channel 10 prior to town meeting day. In addition, the email newsletter is great. We need to find as many ways as possible to get the information out, and certainly I would think that anyone up here on this table is committed to doing that.
Melissa?
I think an email blast for people that utilize the computer can be very handy. Also doing a little recruiting for your friends and neighbors that don't have a computer. If we can get a volunteer chain, just say print 10 copies, distribute them to people without computers. Obtaining the email addresses could be as easy as when you pay your taxes. Submit your email address when you come to town meeting. Have a sign-up sheet. If you'd like to get this, leave us your email address. You can do it with one mouse click once you build that database, and spread the word. If you know someone without a computer that doesn't have access, there are a lot of volunteers. While I was out campaigning, my mother-in-law, who lived at the Birches, her next door neighbor, Terry, was visiting his 92-year-old friend out on Stebbins Road. I'm sure if we got Terry involved, he would print some copies and bring it to his friends that don't have computers. But it's building that base and getting the community involved and making it a community effort. It goes back to accessibility.
Nancy?
We also have an unofficial town website that we put all of our information on. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. And I think Brona's newsletter has had a really good start, and we're trying to use that. But I have lots of people who come into the town clerk's office asking these questions all the time. We give them as much information as we can. I'm open to any other suggestions or any way that I could give you better communication through the town clerk's office.
Steve? Everybody else has answered, but you were...
Well, there have been so many good answers, Chris. I certainly would like to see information getting out. I do know that I look at bulletin boards at the post office and town clerk's office, but I'm up at the town clerk's office periodically for various things, so that's how I stay on top of it. As far as getting the word out, I know, for instance, when I was the clerk of the planning commission for several years, getting the word out about planning commission meetings involved, traveling around town with keys to the cabinets and staples to put the paper up on the board. So it really also needs to be done that way as well. I think the town website is a great idea.
Just recently, when our taxes were due, I sent out a bulk mailing to everyone in town. It wasn't that expensive. It was only $140-something to mail it to everyone in town. I also have my bulletin boards out by the side of the road, and I post something at the post office to let people know what's going on and try to include what our hours are and our extended hours for that particular time. And I posted outside the doors at the town office, so I posted as many places, and this was the first year we did the bulk mailing, and I think it was fairly successful. A lot of people commented on it.
Thank you all. Peggy, please.
I just wanted to mention that for tonight's forum, it was, notices were sent to WKBT, WTSA, went into the Facebook page of Vernon, Vermont, Front Porch Forum, the Commons, the Reformer, the Big Red Sign, and I also believe that the Vernon Voters Alliance arranged for BCTV to be here this evening. The money was fronted by one person who sits up front that just raised her hand. And I personally am going to be chipping in on that this evening, so we're kind of looking for donations. If you'd like to leave a couple of dollars on the table before you leave, that would be great. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'm going to wind this down and ask each candidate to give a statement, a short statement, not going forever. And then I have two letters here of two other candidates that couldn't make it, and I'm going to ask Emily if she would read them when everybody's through, because my head is really filthy and I don't appreciate it. Thank you very much, Lisa. All right, let's start at this end. Go ahead, Nancy.
I'd like to reiterate that I am running for town clerk, excuse me, because I believe the position is best served by a person who has had the training and hands-on experiences to be able to manage and perform the duties of the office. Looking back over the past 40 years, the transition of town clerks in Vernon has followed a practical pattern that I believe has served the best interest of the taxpayers and residents. Our town clerk from 1990 to 2012 was trained by the previous town clerk of 14 years before she took office. Our present town clerk was an assistant town clerk for 11 years before she took office in 2013. I believe it's very important to know the statutes and know how the work needs to be done. And I would just ask you to consider that I am the experienced candidate here, and I would like the chance to serve you for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight and participating in this forum. As town clerk, you have an obligation. You have an obligation to the voters that have elected you, whether it be a 40-hour week, a 60-hour week, an 80-hour week. I've done them in the past. I've done them at the hospital when the need arose. I've gone into the office on the weekends to notarize documents. I obtained my bachelor's degree in adult education and training while I was working full-time and raising my son. I hope this will speak to my time management skills. I was a student as an adult. I was a teacher with Holyoke College in the radiologic technology program. I have years of customer service experience in the hospital setting, in the paralegal setting, and I have the experience with Vermont statutes, working to the statutes. I have the experience with archiving pictures and documents. I've had that experience in electronic record keeping for 10 years. I think with the community striving to get back to where it needs to be, you have choices to make. And I would like everyone to make the informed choice. That's what we're all here for tonight, to provide information for you. And you can bet the information that I've been disseminating is that accessibility and customer service is my bottom line. And if I'm elected town clerk, you will see that day in, day out, evenings, weekends, whatever the need of the voters to be.
Thank you. I'm a child of Vernon. I went to school in this building, not actually here because this was playground. There were 6 rooms in a principal's office when I went through school beginning in 1962 and graduating in 1968. I was lucky enough to be able to have a career in the media in a couple of great radio stations, first WKVT, now at WTSA, and have been honored as a member of the Vermont Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. My life has been about hard work, forged while working logging jobs with my father during off hours, and I have learned a lot about the ability of keeping very careful records and following laws, following rules and regulations. And really, I feel it is incumbent upon us to step up and serve, and no matter who gets elected, it's important that we all vote, show our responsibility, and I am willing to put my shoulder to the wheel and show my experience and sense of hard work and just outright passion for the future of this community. Thank you.
During my tenure in the Treasurer's office, I have very much enjoyed working for and getting to know the residents of the town of Vernon. And I look forward to continuing to develop that relationship. I would appreciate your vote on March 1st. Thank you.
I'm running for a seat on Vernon Selectboard because I care about our town's future. I currently serve on the library board, the fiber optics subcommittee, as well as representing the town on what is known as WICIDEP, Windham County Economic Development Program Council, which helps to administer the Entergy funds. I've already told you that I'm editor and co-founder of the Vernon Community News, and also co-founder of the VernonVermont.org unofficial town website, and co-founder of the Vernon Artisans Market and Studio Tour. I regularly attend select board meetings where, if you watch BCTV, you will see that I ask questions because I want to learn. And let me tell you, tonight I learned a lot, that I have much more to learn. And I'm willing to do that. And I offer suggestions at the select board meetings because I care. This is a time of opportunity for us, a time for us to work together to make Vernon a place where folks want to live, work, or visit. And I want to serve on the select board because I care about the town.
Yes, thank you all for coming this evening. I want to first say that my opening comments that I drafted before I sat down here this evening had me stating that I was pleased and honored to be a candidate for the Vernon Selectboard in the election in March 2016. I'd like to add to that something, because my experience for the short while that I was on the Select Board back in 2015 also showed me that it can be a very frustrating task and sometimes not very pleasant. And I always try to pull myself in a little bit in remembering that, because being a Select Board member here in Vernon means making decisions, some of which are not universally popular. There's going to come a time when there'll be a group wanting us to do one thing and another group wanting us to do something else. And as Select Board members, we have to evaluate all that we can and come up with a decision. And it's not going to be always universally popular. It's going to be difficult not only for the people whose side we did not land on, but also it's going to be difficult for us. And I've seen some of that, and it's something to keep in mind. Just a quick summary of my reasons for running. My family first came to this town in 1922. My grandparents had emigrated from Ukraine, and my grandfather found a farm for sale here in South Vernon that he particularly liked and that he could afford. So they moved in and started paying the mortgage on the place, and ended up raising a family and staying here for all their lives. My father was born on the farm, and he became quite a person interested in town government. He first was on the school board and then for a while on the Select Board. During that process, he inculcated, certainly in me, I was the eldest child, the importance of giving back to the community. And I see what I'm sitting here today and what I hope to do in the future is giving back for all those benefits that I have gleaned from the town. I started school here as Tim did. I was in first grade in 1954 when this building, the front building, first opened. Prior to that, it was all a one-room school situation here in Vernon. There were, I think, 5 or 6 schools. And this was the first school that we had where grade 1 was in one room, grade 2 was in another, etc. So it was a whole different experience. And I know I think Mrs. Mosley actually might have been teaching back then too. It was quite different going to schools of that nature. Some things that I feel are important, I've mentioned some of them already, for being on the Select Board. I feel first off that we have to be very fiscally responsible as Select Board members, and we need to try to live very tightly within our budget, and in fact try to affect economies for the future, because although we can somewhat depend on the income of taxes, we also can be faced with costs that weren't planned for. The second thing I really want to stress here are the importance of civility in all of this. Treating people as residents and citizens of the town with respect, even though their opinions may differ from mine, that at least to listen to them and try to understand where they're coming from, because we all live here and we all have a right to express that, and I want to make sure that we continue to do that in the future. I would also pledge as my final statement here that if elected to the Select Board, I will not shy away from any controversy, nor will I vote any action that I believe to be wrong for the town of Vernon. I think I've already demonstrated that in my short stint as a Select Board member, and I will continue to maintain that position for at least for the next 2 years if elected to the 2-year position. And I'd like to thank you all for coming again this evening and for your patience.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. No, I didn't touch it. I did, but I didn't touch the switch. All right, I'll start with Josh's statement. Dear Vernon residents, my name is Joshua Unruh, and I'm running for the residual 3-year term of selectman in the upcoming election to be held March 1st. First, I would like to thank everyone who supported me during the June special election last year and those people who have encouraged me throughout my first year on the select board. I have learned a lot and look forward to continuing to learn and facilitate ways to keep our town prosperous. I'm seeking re-election because I believe I can continue to bring new ideas on how to balance our budgets, recoup lost tax revenue, and preserve our town and its services in a cost-efficient manner without losing the services and programs that make our town so special. For those of you who don't know me, I manage Leader Home Center in Brattleboro. My wife is Chelsea Unruh, owner of Inspired Design here in Vernon. We have 3 daughters, Kaylee, Jada, and Bria. Kaylee and Jada attend Vernon Elementary, and Bria is in her final year at Vernon Preschool. I'm the president of the Vernon Recreation Department Board, have been the Vernon Town Picnic Coordinator for the past 4 years, the co-founder of the Vernon Annual Tree Lighting Celebration, a member of the Vernon Emergency Management Committee, and chair of the Vernon War Memorial Committee. I enjoy being an active member in our community and find a great deal of satisfaction in standing up for the things I believe in during town and select board meetings. I will continue to carry my devotion for our town into this position without hesitation or influence from any group. During the years my family has lived in Vernon, I've grown to love our community, but I think that in the last few years we've started to move away from the spirit we once enjoyed, and I hope to be able to continue to help bring that back during my next term on the select board. I know that this won't be an easy task, but it's a challenge I'm willing to take on to regain our sense of unity and commonality as we move into the future. As we all know, we are venturing into new territory with the loss of Vermont Yankee and the school tax credit we've enjoyed for so long, as well as the challenges presented through the state's adoption of Act 46. These challenges will require changes in how we do business in the town and cooperation between the select board and the school board to stabilize our budget while retaining what is special about Vernon. I believe I can be the person to keep it as strong as it's ever been during these times. Thank you, Josh Unruh. Please remember to vote on March 1st. Our future depends on all of us. And from Sandra Harris. I am running for re-election to the Vernon Select Board. I am completing my 4th year on the board, but for those who don't know me, here are a few of the reasons I feel I am qualified. My family has been in Vernon, working for Vernon for over a century. Following in their footsteps, I have served as assistant town clerk, drove school bus, served on the planning commission, town clerk for 23 years, becoming Vernon's first to be certified as a state and international municipal clerk, select board secretary for 18 years, president of the Vermont Municipal Clerks and Treasurers Association, president of the New England Municipal Clerks Institute and Academy Board of Directors, president of Vermont League of Cities and Towns Board of Directors, mentor for new clerks, and served and continue to serve on many other boards and committees. I have learned and continue to learn from clerks, treasurers, select boards, aldermen, councilmen, mayors, town managers, town administrators, etc., as diverse as you can imagine. Some of these are from huge municipalities, some from towns so small they would fit into the foyer at our town office building. Some of those offices didn't even have indoor plumbing. I grew up in Vernon before Vermont Yankee, when Vernon was just a small farm community. Town meeting was held on the first Tuesday of March in the school cafeteria, and school cooks would cook the lunch for everyone. As a child, I watched people who were arguing moments before sitting down to a meal and laughing together. Town business was separate from personalities, and seldom did disagreements continue outside of that meeting. As Vermont Yankee brought more money into the town changed. We always knew Vermont Yankee was not a permanent fixture in town, and those early town leaders set about to make sure that when Vermont Yankee left, the taxpayers in Vernon would not suffer. However, they got older and died. New town leaders started chipping away at the funds that had been set up to protect the future of Vernon, and you see where we are today. Today, we face making cuts that must change the way business is done in Vernon. It is painful and frustrating, But unless we take the hard steps now, the taxpayers will be unable to afford to live here. We have no large industry to pick up the slack at this time. The Planning/Economic Development Commission is spending hours searching for solutions, but until an industry chooses to come to town, we, the taxpayers, must foot the whole bill. This is not an easy time to serve, but I feel that the historical background I can bring, as well as the education I have received from so many other municipalities, can help. I would appreciate your vote. However, whether you vote for me or not, please do vote. It is your right, and your vote is very important. Thank you, Sandra Harris.
Thank you for doing that. All right, before I close, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I want to say to the candidates, thank you all for running for local offices. I want to wish you, each one of you, good luck and Godspeed. Now, I also want to say what my mother told me many years ago. This is my last year for volunteering and working for the town of Vernon. So, 34 plus years ago, when I started, my mother told me, well, first of all, when I did run, and when I started out as, I drove the senior van. And it was with great passion, I mean extreme passion, that I volunteered and I worked for the town. My mother said, she said that it's something that, well, she worked for 40 plus years for the town of Vernon as well, and she was elected and volunteered as well. She said it was not only my obligation to my fellow citizens, it was my civil duty to work for the municipality. And Tim, you probably have heard that too. That's where we came from. People like that we're community-minded. She told me to listen to all people. That's what I'm telling you as well, is why I'm reading this. She told me not to be somebody or something I wasn't, because the people are voting for me. And besides that, she would say, it wouldn't work anyway. They want you, not somebody else, but you. Mom said, just be yourself, stay true to your values, making sure you stay on top of all the issues involving the town, and you will succeed. You will have lots of friends. You'll have also enemies. But in any case, you will succeed because you will be doing it for your city. She ended by saying to me, Christy, you will find nothing more rewarding if you do this for the people and not for yourself. Lastly, I say to all of you, and now that a public office, I want you to know, is not a job. It is an opportunity to do something for your fellow people, for your neighbors. With that, good night, everybody, and thank you all for coming.